today. Today, I'm going to talk about the Power Platform CoE from reactive to proactive enterprise governance. So before I start the webinar, I'm Abhijit Zadhav. I have 20 plus years of experience. I'm the director for cloud solutions at TrnDigital. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for M365 development. After this webinar, if you have any follow-up questions or would like to connect, these are my social handles. So this is the agenda which I would like to cover today. I'll talk about the Power Platform security and governance framework. I'll talk about the 4 pillars of secure governance, governing the Copilot agents. Then we'll talk about the 90-day governance roadmap, and then key takeaways from this webinar. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer those. So let me start with a question that keeps IT leaders awake at night. How many Power Apps are running in our organization right now that I don't know? Not the ones which are approved from the approved list, not the ones our team built, the ones that a business unit quietly created last quarter to solve the business problem. And I have asked this question in multiple sessions, and most of the times the IT leaders are not very confident that they know everything about all the Power Apps within their environment. So as we go through this webinar, and if you are a Power Platform administrator, I want you to think about your organization and think about how many applications are you currently managing. Think about what's your biggest governance pain point right now. Where do you have the visibility gaps? And what would change if you could see and control Power Platform activity? And I am going to talk about all these questions and answers to this. So by end of this hour, you won't just understand the governance theory. You will also have a clear framework showing that what secure governance actually looks like, a real implementation patterns for your organization, a 90-day roadmap where you can start executing it from the day one. And the specific tools and templates that Microsoft provides to accelerate your journey. And most importantly, you will see that governance doesn't mean slowing down innovation. It means unleashing it safely. So think of it this way: a secured playground. A secured playground, you can see in the visual, is where your users can innovate the most because they know the boundaries are very clear, they know they are safe, then they can focus on the creativity. And that's what we are building for your Power Platform environments. So here's what we see across multiple organizations. Just take a scenario. Imagine a finance team using Power Apps to connect to a personal cloud storage to save the sensitive quarterly reports. Or imagine a sales organization building an automation that pulls data from multiple sources, either from ERP, CRM, or any important sensitive SharePoint sites without proper controls. Or a regional office that is creating their own data lake because they can, and because the Power Platform makes it so accessible. These aren't malicious. If you just give it a thought, these aren't malicious. They are the signs of something good happening. So this is a counter view, but just give it a thought. Empowered citizen developers are solving real business problems and at the speed of business demands. So your user can set up a data lake and they can solve your business problem very fast. But here's the tension. That same democratization that's driving innovation is also creating blind spots. It's creating uncontrolled connectors, unmanaged data flows, compliance risks, and it's creating cost leakage. It's creating shadow ITs. The question isn't how do we stop this? That's actually not the question because we want them to innovate and we want them to solve business problems. But the actual question here is how do we enable it safely so that they keep working at the pace at which they are working, but at the same time, it's very safe. And most organizations, they fall into this reactive pattern. You know, you get notified of a breach or a compliance violation, and suddenly you lock down the data connectors. You you lock down the apps as well. And the users who are using these applications, they get frustrated. The business starts complaining. And you spend weeks in firefighting mode, creating the DLP policies in response to the problems instead of preventing those problems. So reactive governance looks like this. You can see on the screen. It's incident, then panic, then overcorrection. Then you have your frustrated users, and the cycle goes on. So for this, is there a better way? Yes, there is a better way. And that is proactive governance. So proactive governance, it means you design your security into platform that is working for you. That is, before it goes wrong, you can create a framework where your citizens developers have the freedom to innovate, but within the secured playground of your choosing, where governance isn't a barrier, it's an enabler, where you have the visibility into what's happening as an administrator, or where prevention beats the firefighting every single time. That's what we are here to build today. So the journey we are talking about, it is from the left hand side of your screen, like from this reactive uh, governance, where you have this incident driven governance, to we are talking about the proactive, where you have strategic governance by design, strategic planning in governance by design. And here's what it makes this possible. It is not some expensive enterprise tool and it's not complex infrastructure. So Microsoft is offering multiple open source. There are CoE toolkits, templates available, best practices available. And to use this, so that we can use this and we can build exactly what transition we are looking at. And these toolkits, the toolkits like the CoE toolkit, it provides you the pillars of governance, the four pillars of governance in with respect to Power Platform, Power. Uh, the four pillars are: you need to have environment strategy, like the architecture that scales securely. Then the second, you need to have data loss prevention policy, the smart policies that will protect without paralyzing the users. The third, solution management, that you need to have your solutions which are controlled, those are versioned, and those are deployed incrementally on, on upper tiers, like starting from the, say, dev to test to prod. And then you have visibility and monitoring. Like you need to know as an administrator what's happening, and based on that, you make informed decisions. And these are four pillars are not separate initiatives. These work together as an integrated systems. So before we talk about those four pillars, taking a step back and giving a broad thought, like why governance matters now. You have implemented a Power Platform or the Power Platform is available, but why does governance matters now? So just picture this: a department head, he requested and he created an Power App to track all the customer data. The app is working great. Everybody is happy because it was built in no time. And until they accidentally connect it to a public cloud storage service, and suddenly the sensitive customer information is exposed. The incident goes viral on internal teams, compliance gets involved, and your organization faces both financial penalties and reputational damage. So the core challenge here is the organization today, they, they face a paradox where the empowerment, you want to empower the users, you want empowerment, but the empowerment is it meets risk. So Power Platform, it is democratizing app development. There are more than 1,500 connectors. That means there are countless ways that data can leak accidentally. Speed versus security, like users want to build it fast and IT needs visibility and control, because everybody is building fast, but somebody needs to have a visibility that what's going on. And also the IT needs the control on what's been built. And then we have shadow IT. The shadow IT, it's real. Without governance, apps are built in the shadows and it is invisible to compliance and security teams. And definitely there is always the compliance pressure. The regulators, the auditors, the boards are asking, do you know where the sensitive data lies? So considering all these, it is very critical now. The shadow IT, prevention and visibility, if you see the first point, the shadow IT visibility, IT prevention and visibility, the organization will lose the track of how many apps or flows exist, who created them, what data they access. So reactive governance means discovering problems after the incidents occur, whereas the proactive governance means knowing your app landscape before risk materializes, before the risk happens. Data protection and compliance. So with these multiple regulations that you have, the GDPR, the HIPAA compliance, and many more such compliance, organizations can't afford to have data breaches. One unauthorized connector can expose the customer PII data, financial data. So governance prevents these incidents before they happen. And then comes the cost and efficiency. So the uncontrolled Power Platform, if there is a sprawl of this, it will lead to the duplicate solutions. Say you have region 1 and region 1 has created an application, it's working fantastic for them, and region 2 has the same requirement. So until as an admin you have the visibility that the app is already built, it will be rebuilt again, and this is duplication of solutions, and it will not only consume the licenses, it will also consume the storage, and finally it leads to additional cost. Similarly, ungoverned cloud connections driving unexpected cloud costs. So consider that you have one of your user have connected to an OpenAI API, and they start using it using and hundreds and thousands of tokens are used for that AI application. So it will lead to huge costs on the organization, and whether you need to understand the value proposition of such applications being done. And if they are ungoverned, those are unexpected cloud costs. Similarly, there is a support there is a burden on the support system as well, because you have so many unsupported shadow apps. Then you would need to support those applications because those all might be useful. So proactive governance consolidates solutions and it optimizes the resource allocation that you have. If you just look holistically, the organizations with proactive platform governance, they don't manage risk. They actually innovate faster. The reason for that is the user know what's approved and can be built confidently. So it will not happen that some of the users are building the application, it is ready, everybody did the build the application, tested it, and finally when it goes to compliance or legal, and then they shut down saying that it is not allowed, right? Similarly, the IT isn't firefighting for incidents and which can cause, they're not just looking at some breach happened, but they are actually working on some strategic initiatives. They are focusing on the strategic initiatives. Like in Q1, you have a planned release where you are taking few features, implementing it, and then thinking of implementing few additional more features in Q2. But instead of that, if there is a reactive governance, you will always be in the mode of firefighting activities. Then comes the security. So security and business, those work together. Those are not against each other. And deployment timelines, if everything is automated, deployment timelines, they will accelerate when the processes and the automation is in place. So to summarize, the bottom line is governance isn't the brake on innovation. It's actually the fuel that will make it sustainable. The organizations winning in digital transformations aren't the ones which are reacting to incidents. They are, so the organizations which are actually preventing the incidents are winning the digital transformations. And that's with shifting from reactive governance to proactive governance. And let's see how we can do that. So switching gears, I talked about 4 pillars of secure governance. I talked about in Power Platform, you have environment strategy. You need to concentrate on the data loss prevention, the solution management, and then the visibility and monitoring of all the flows, apps, agents that are there within your environment. So for the let's start with the environment strategy. So environment strategy, it is your foundational layer. It's the physical architecture that will determine the physical architecture of the applications, that how your place going to place the applications. Okay, so it is the foundational layer. Before you can govern anything, you need a proper structure. Think of environments as zones of control where you have dev, test, production. You can also have personal sandbox or any business unit specific. So these are like zones of control. And without clear environment strategy, you are trying to enforce policy and in chaos, right? So you don't know like on which environment you're on which solution, which applications are you putting those policies and how those are working. So if you have a clear environment strategy, that will really help you. So what you need to focus on when it comes to environment strategy. So you need to have logical separation, dev, test, prod, and like prod isolated from all dev test environments. Then the data residency and compliance. So where should the data live? Based on if your organization is global organization, so EU have their own standards versus US versus APAC, and so on and so forth. So the data residency compliance, then the scalability planning, like how many environments do you need, for how many users do you need, and then putting the security boundaries against this, like who can access which environment. Then the cost allocation as well. If every business unit is uh, paying for the cost for their business, then the cost allocation is important. Which business unit owns which environment, right? So environment strategy, it is not glamorous, but it is foundational. It is the scaffolding of everything else that hangs on, right? When you get this right, the rest of the governance becomes manageable. So if you see when you're doing the planning of this environment, so you need to give into consider these points. One is your size, geography, the data residency, democratized access versus centralized control. There are organizations who have centralized control where there is only one global IT team, and the access and everything is managed from the central team. Whereas in some cases there is democratized access. That means the business unit actually manages. The HR team has their own IT versus finance have their own controllers who can manage the access and control. So based on that, you can create the environments. Then based on the compliance and regulatory mandates, you can have the policies or environments created. Say your dev environment versus test versus prod. So prod will have stringent and stricter compliance policies, whereas your dev and test will have less stringent compliance. And then the business unit isolations and resource allocation. Your prod will need more resource allocation versus based on the business unit that you are functioning. You can create different environments for different business units. So considering the organization's unique requirements, you can plan for your environments. Now moving on to our second pillar, which is DLP. So DLP, that is the data loss prevention, it's an active defense mechanism. The rules, this is the rules engine. Okay, this will prevent the risky connections before they happen. So it's really important when you're considering security, when you're considering data leaks. So DLP policies come into picture. And when it, so how does, like, why it matters, why the DLP policies matters. So it's really important to classify your connectors, whether those are business connectors versus non-business connectors versus block connectors. Let me give you an example. Say uh, you are connecting to your SharePoint list. You created an application or created a flow, and you're connecting to your SharePoint list, getting the data, processing it, and sending notifications. So your Outlook connector and your SharePoint connector can be a business. You can collate those and group them as the business connectors, right? You can classify them as business connectors. Similarly, there is an connector for your social media handles. So for this is a unique requirement. So not everybody from your organization would need the connection to your social media connectors, right? But there might be your corporate communication team, and your corporate communication team needs connectivity or connectors to the social media connectors like Twitter or like X, or any other like Facebook and things like that. So based on your business unit and based on the group that is using those applications, you might need to plan your data loss prevention. You need to classify your connectors accordingly and then apply those against each group. And data loss prevention is the only real prevention tool, because rest of the things in Power Platform are more over detection and response, right? So where exactly the data is stored, or from where you are getting the data. So based on your DLP policies, you can control that. So that's the real prevention. So once the data gets saved there and somebody finds it, so that is then finding, detecting, and then responding to it. Similarly, now moving on, without DLP, you are betting on user judgment. Like, if say the user is able to save the files, and you have a personal Dropbox, and user create an application or Power Automate flow, and then if he saves those files on the customer data or important financial data on user's Dropbox, so that you're taking a chance, and that shouldn't be the case. You should have the policies where the user judge, it should not be left to user to decide, but the admin should take a call on where how the policy should be defined. Okay. So just take an example. Let me explain this with an example. Say you have a user who creates a Power App to manage customer leads. Okay. And this application, he created a Power App, it's working great. It connects to your Salesforce, it brings the data, but it also connects to the personal Dropbox, the user's personal Dropbox, because it is very convenient for him to access it when he's on the go, or any sales executive there, sales representatives, when they're traveling, they can easily access it to store the attachments and things like that. But without DLP, the app runs, the customer data can get accidentally, it gets into your personal Dropbox, and that is a compliance incident. So when you implement a DLP, when the user tries to mix the Salesforce data with personal Dropbox, the system blocks it. And it also suggests the user that there is an approved alternative like the SharePoint. So the same user is able to use the functionality, but at the same time, there is zero data risk or data leak, right? So to summarize, the DLP is where the policy meets prevention. It's not about saying no to the users. It's about saying yes, but saying yes to safely, or saving the data safely. So you are guiding your users toward approved patterns and not shutting them down. So you want your sales executives to access the data, store the attachments, but you want them to be stored on a secure location. So after that, there are also, like, you can have strict policy based on, you can balance your policy based on your strictness. As I gave you an example of corporate communication. So you would need a customized option for managing that. And then you have, if you're using CoE kit, you have something called DLP editor, which will help you to understand what is the impact of once the DLP policy is configured. Just have a look at it. You created a policy, you went to, and you are seeing which connectors, and based on that, you are uh, classifying them, whether those should be blocked or those should be moved to business. So now, based on that, you were able to do it, and then you can decide whether to which environment you want to apply this to. So based on based on the environment, you applied it, and then you will see that when you apply these policy, you will see in the flow that where exactly it gets affected. So it will also show you the affected affected flows, apps, or agents that you're using. So it really helps in configuring the DLPs as well as monitoring those DLPs and understand the impact analysis of that. So when you're implementing DLPs, these are some guidelines. Like, you need to start with your lower tier, understand, get the data, and based on that, you need to communicate the changes. If there is already an application, it is being used, you need to communicate the changes proactively to your end users or stakeholders. Because once the app goes live and it is already there, if you are implementing a new policy, it should be clearly communicated to the stakeholders to avoid user frustration. There are always edge cases within organization. There might be custom application. There might be a a genuine need for making HTTP calls or making API calls. So based on that, those custom connectors, those HTTP calls, you can understand, review it, and based on that, take a call when you're implementing DLP policies. And once a policy is implemented, it's an ongoing cycle. Where you have to iterate based on usage patterns and based on the feedback that you receive from the users. So these are some guidelines that you can use to implement the DLP policies. And these are some of the patterns for implementing DLP policies. You can leverage the AAD groups. You can integrate with your M365 compliance tool. So for lower environments like say dev or even on test, you can use CoE kit, you can use the DLP policies, but on a production grade environment, you can also use the M365 compliance tools like Microsoft Purview and Microsoft Sentinel just to understand for threat protection and also applying those labels on your data so that it doesn't get accidentally exposed or the data is not visible to people to whom it is not intended to be visible. So you can integrate those M365 compliance tools and you can also use Dynamics 365 data integration patterns. Say, for example, you have sales organization and sales organization is already established, then you can use the same patterns and then apply within your Power Platform tools as well. So that integration patterns can be replicated when you are implementing these DLP policies. And as I said, like it's really important for communication strategy because when you're making change for the DLP policies or if you're restricting the users from doing something, it's really important for users, typically the developers who are called makers, like the Power App makers, the flow makers. Everyone should be aware of what change you're making, and you need to communicate those so that they have enough information before they make any decisions, and it is proactively communicated so they are not doing non-compliant activities. And you always, whenever you have policies, you should always suggest on the compliant alternatives. I gave you an example of instead of saving it to users' personal Dropbox, you can save it to SharePoint list and then still make it available to the users so that those kind of compliant alternatives are you need to communicate. And it's really important to establish the feedback channels so that you understand within your organization that what is working, what is not working, is there any area of improvement, because you want to help the end users, you want to help the makers to safely empower them, right? And the fourth point is really important where you need to monitor the adoption and adjust it as needed. Okay. So then comes the part of the third pillar, which is very important when you're developing apps, when you're developing flows, solution management. So the DLP controls what goes where. Okay, that will stop the users from accessing anything. But you also need to control which applications and automations get deployed when. Okay, if you have any developer uh, app and developer has created and developed an app and it is getting deployed on test or on production, you want to know and you should plan when it is getting deployed and how it is getting deployed. And this solution management will help. Okay, it's how you prevent your shadow IT from becoming shadow solutions, right? Because you don't want same application 3 versions uh, in different versions, or same application using at different environments, right? On the test environment versus on the production environment. So it's really important that you have the proper solution management. So there are 4 pillars of solution management, or 4 guidelines, I would say. So solutions are Power Platform's ways of packaging and flows together, right? You must already know that, like you might be using the flow solutions already. Think of them as deployment units. Instead of having 47 flows scattered across the environments, you have, say for example, we have the customer onboarding solution and it contains 8 related flows, and report automation solutions contain 12 flows. Okay, so instead of having those scattered flows, packaging them into solution makes it trackable, movable, and versionable as well. So for any X reason you want to drop an environment, and if you want to create another environment, or you want to take a copy of that and create another application, it's really easy when you have packaged it in solution. Then implementing ALM, the application lifecycle management. The ALM is your process. How does an idea like tracking customer data, or say booking meeting rooms, or any idea within your organization, how it becomes a production app? So ALM says ideas live in development environments. When they tested, they move to the tested environments, and when approved, they move to the production. So you are controlling the flow. You are adding the proper gates. So establishing the deployment pipelines. So deployment pipelines are the automation that supports ALM. Instead of manually moving the solutions between one environment to second environment, you can create pipelines and they will take care, they will handle it. You press a button, promote from dev to test. The pipeline moves the solution, runs the test, validates the compliance. If it passes, it's ready. If it fails, you know immediately and you can roll back to your earlier version. And then, like, since I'm talking about versions, the version control. Every solution gets versions, right? Like you make small changes, those are point releases, say 1.0, 1.1, and then are major releases, 2.0. If something breaks in production, you know exactly what changed from 1.9 to 2.0, right? And you can easily roll back if needed. So say one functionality you have implemented it and you see major issue with that, or you don't want that functionality to be, it has multiple issues, you can easily roll back once you have version control and change management. You have the complete history of who changed and what was changed and what changes were done. You have the complete understanding of that. So without solution management, your Power Platform becomes chaos, right? Apps are everywhere, no tracking, no control. You have governance, you have control once you have solution management. So solutions are what and when, but there's also how, and that's life cycle within each solution. Specifically, how it moves through environments, and let's go deeper into ALM, the ALM solutions, right? So how exactly it gets moved. So this is practical implementation of ALM, where you have a standard pipeline that aligns with Microsoft best practices, and it works. It starts from development as an idea, it gets tested, it moves to production, and you have the gating controls where you have approvals, you have test verification, you have rollback capability, and so on and so forth. So this really helps you in maintaining the solution and sustaining the solution without causing user disruption or uh, user unhappiness or user frustration as well, I would say. So now we have covered the infrastructure, the policies, the pipelines, but all of this is invisible without the visibility tools. So let's talk about making governance visible. And that will be covered as part of our fourth pillar, which is visibility and monitoring. So everything we discussed about creating a CoE, having the toolkit, the ALM pipelines. It is powerful, but the power is useless if it is not accessible to you. That's where your governance and templates come in. So Microsoft gives you multiple templates, and one of the open source template, the CoE toolkit, it's widely used and it's really helpful for understanding the very detailed versus very high level. You will get all the information of your Power Platform, whether it is apps, whether it is flows, whether it is agents, the usability, capacity, all those details can be tracked using the CoE toolkit. So there are like different template categories, I would say. You have admin templates to govern for governance automation, where you can have your repetitive governance task. Like you need to notify the owners when their app isn't used for 90 days. You have a template for that. Then you need to audit who is using which connectors. You can use the admin templates. You need to auto disable the orphaned environments which are not used for longer time. You have a template for that, and you don't write these from scratch. You need not have to write this from scratch, but you import them, customize them based on your organization. So here, if you see my screen, I have these toolkit installed, and here you can see that this is your creator kit, and there are multiple options here. The center of excellence, you have the governance components, the core components, and things like that. So you go to you search for CoE toolkit, and you have an option to import solution. Once you import it, a creator kit is created, and it has everything in terms of it will give you the details of, say, component libraries, the custom controls that are there, and the agents. So these are created once you import the solution as part of your CoE toolkit. And once you import that, let me show you the monitor one. So this is your starter kit dashboard as a monitoring solution. You can so the CoE toolkit, it has this four pillars of monitoring, governing, nurturing, and then there is compliance, right? So as part of your monitoring, you can see like bots overview, the SharePoints, Power Automates, if there are any custom connectors, if there are any flows. So you can get all the details, like if you the overview of all the Power Apps, the top 20 environments by app count. You can see the app makers who are using it. Here, the number of apps, the app makers, how many are Canvas apps, how many are model-driven apps. So that details, you can similarly for Power Apps, you have Power Automate as well, which are those 20 environments. Who are your top flow makers? Then you have the how many desktop flows you have, then how many cloud flows you have, and which are the locations like maker cities you can see within your or a Power Platform environment. Similarly, the copilots, if you're creating any agents, so what is your bot? How many bots are there? Which are the users, the top bot makers? Those details can be tracked as your admin template. Then you have the CoE template. So as part of your CoE templates, the compliance, right? So you want to know what is your environment capacity. So what is the total consumption, the database consumption, what is your file consumptions. So those details are available in these reports, and these all comes as part of your CoE toolkit. There are different applications, the Power Apps as well as the Power BI dashboards for this. So in this Power BI dashboard, you can go to like app plan classification. Then you can go against each app. Who is the owner? What was the last date it was launched? So this gives you the complete visibility. You can also have against each of these apps, you can drill through to manage the app access. You can review the app connectors. You can archive, you can see the app usage, the app shares. So all these details are available as part of your template. And once you start monitoring, once you have the visibility, this really gives you the insights and analytics to manage your environment. So similarly for your nurture, like how many This area is really important because since you are Power Platform, we have seen it is used mostly by your citizen developers, and the it's really important to understand who are the top makers and which departments are using. And then geographically, if you want to understand that which offices of yours is actually using it, at what scale those are being used, that can be visible through these apps. And then you have the app, what is the app launch trend, right? Which are those apps and launches per app maker? Like if this, what are the launches per app, then classification, premium versus standard, and so on and so forth. So this will really give you, not only give you visibility, it will help you to monitor, it will also help you to take strategic actions based on the insights that you've got. And then comes your compliance part, where you have you would know that there might be some apps who has no owners. There are apps which are not in solutions. There might be old applications. So all these, the flows which have the duplicate names. So this will really help you to optimize your cost. It also will help you to reduce the support that is required. You can also minimize your support to this application by either getting rid of them or understanding the business reasoning of those applications. And let's say like cross tenant connections, if there are any apps which are making cross tenant connections, you can also verify and review those, why those are made and what is the business justification. This really helps you to explain the auditors and regulators, and when you are implementing the regulatory standards. So coming back to the slide. So as I said, I mean, the Power Platform CoE toolkit, it gives you core setup components I showed you in the app. So it gives you governance automation. With Power Automate flows, you can remove the application, you can revoke the applications, or you can also inform the, say once a new user comes in and he creates a new app first time, then you can send him all the policies that are implemented, the guidelines and the best practices for your organization. So you can have automated flows as part of your governance automation. You can also do audit log, like all the activities which are happening. If any apps get deleted, if any apps get modified, you can have those audit log collection, and based on that, who did, what was did, and when it was did, all those details can be captured. And then I showed you the Power BI governance dashboards. Those can be finally, with that data, the information is available. This is moreover proactive monitoring. Why I have been talking about proactive monitoring since last 15 minutes. So it is building visibility, that it will track who creates, who shares the flows, the apps, the agents. Make you can understand the connection usage, like from across which environment, what is happening. You can monitor the environment and then DLP impact on each of these. And then you can have actually generate actionable governance reports on these. So the governance templates are available. You can use those admin templates for governance, CoE templates, and Power BI dashboards. Now comes the part of governing the cloud solutions, right? Like Cloud Studio agents. So when you're creating the Copilot Studio agents, the Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI, we have covered all of them. But Power Platform also includes the Copilot Studio, which lets you build AI agents. And as AI becomes central to business automation, governance becomes critical here too, right? So there are these different dimensions that you need to consider. The agents are a collection of components. So you have your knowledge sources, you have triggers, you have connected data, you have actions. So you need visibility. What data is this agent accessing? What external systems is it calling? Who built it? When was it last updated? You're treating agents like any other app that need governance, right? Then you have compliance policies against those agents. Just like you control your deployments through ALM, you need to control the agent deployments as well. Does this agent comply with your data classification policies? Is it approved connect? Is it done with approved connectors? Has it been security reviewed? So all those compliance policies monitoring is required. And then the agent usage and performance. Once the agent goes live, how many agents are interacting with it? Are the responses appropriate? Are the edge cases where it's giving bad guidance? Is it consuming excessive resource? Because excessive resource means it can cause huge cost impact. So AI is here. Organizations are deploying these agents quickly. If you don't govern them, you will have new shadow IT problem. So you need to be proactive from their governor for the governance from day one. So Copilot agents are cutting edge. The agents that, but most organizations are still working through the implementation of the core four principal pillars that we talked about. So let's talk about how we actually implement in very specific context. Okay, so I talked about like the 90-day plan. So for the everything we have discussed, okay, in terms of CoE toolkit, DLP, these principles are important, right? But now when you're actually implementing these, it's really important to have the policies in place. So in the for first phase, what you will do is you will have the CoE toolkit deployment and do the baseline audit starting from week 1 to week 3, right? So you will deploy the CoE toolkit to your core infrastructure, have the admin environment, service accounts, so all that as part of your week 1 to 3. You will have the Power Platform governance admin role assignments done. This sounds technical, but it is your foundation. Without it, nothing else works. So by end of week 1, you have everything, all the plumbing in place. Then you can do inventory and audit on what is your how many apps, how many flows, who owns them, and then finally baseline your dashboard. From week 4, you start with you design your target environment architecture. How many development environments do you need? How many test environments, production, who can access which environment? Then you're creating a structure. Then you define the policies, the DLP policies. Start those in the lower tier, collect all the log violations, and then don't uh, you can then start gathering the data and identifying the gaps, and based on that, you can configure your DLP policies. And then from the week 7 to 12, and it's an ongoing process, you establish a solution management where you have dev, test, production, and progression. You build your governance workflows. You deploy your first governed solution through pipeline, starting from dev to test, test to production. And you are proving the process is working. You're training your teams for ALM. And this becomes your new normal. So this is your phase 3. So this roadmap isn't theoretical. We have seen organizations follow this timeline and we have seen them succeed. If you commit to 90 days, you will see the transformation, and that's the ask. Now we have given you the framework, the tools, patterns, roadmap. Let me pull back and remind you the 4 principles, like the 5 core principles that tie us all together. Okay, so I'm talking about the final key takeaways from today's meeting. So you have this response based on key takeaways will be governance enables the democratization. So it will not restrict, the governance will not restrict, it will enable, right? Then the CoE toolkit, it is accelerating the implementation. You are not building it from zero. It is already available. You can take it and then modify it based on your organization needs. Then visibility will drive the proactive decisions. So see the landscape and act strategically. So based on the data that you have seen, monitoring you have done, so based on that, you take strategic decisions. Then change management, it ensures adoption. So it's really important that people understand what change is coming in because people will only adopt when they understand. So technical solution plus organizational readiness is really important. And then the last one, start today. So proactive beats reactive every time. We have seen, and reactive, so proactive always compounds and reactive never starts. Okay, so that's your foundation. That's what you take back for your organization if you want to implement the governance. So these are some of the resources. I'll share the deck after this, so you can also go through this. So there is a Power Platform toolkit and all these URLs that are there. And there is also some hyperlinks, some additional resources. These are the new changes that Microsoft has either planned to implement. Some of these are in preview, or some of them are recently introduced by Microsoft. So you have all those links here. So that's it from my end. So you've got a lot of information today, a lot of tools, a lot of next steps. We want to make sure that you have what you need to actually execute. And that's the reason I'm providing you all the links and everything. So thank you for joining us today. Let's build a stronger governance foundation together. And you can always reach out to me. I have already shared my social handles. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer those questions. Thank you all for joining today, and you have a wonderful day. Thank you.